Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks for joining us. My name is Alan Kellogg. I'm the Director of Communications for the Perry School District, and I'm joined today by several staff members, including administrators and some building principals. And today we're going to talk about what Remote Learning 2.0 is going to look like. And I know several of you have probably seen we released our district plan today for the reopening. And while I'm sure there's a lot of questions pertaining to everything that's in there, today we're just going to focus on the remote learning side of it to help parents make a decision as to whether they want to bring their kids on campus or keep them remote. We plan to go till about 7:30 today, and we'll have a presentation by Dr. Betty Jo Malcheski, our Assistant Superintendent, and so she's going to give an overview of what that program is going to look like this year, and then we'll go into a Q&A session afterwards. If we don't get to your questions, please feel free to reach out to your building principal and ask that question. They'd be happy to help you, or if you think of a different question afterwards, please feel free to reach out to anyone, and we'll be happy to point you in the right direction. This meeting is also being recorded, and we're going to post it on our website on the conclusion of it. So without further ado, I don't want to take up any more of the time. Dr. Betty Jo Malcheski.
All right, good evening. At this time, if I can ask everyone to mute so that we can make sure that this is clear for you on the other end, please mute. And then, of course, when we have questions and answers, just unmute and ask those away. Again, I'm Betty Jo Malcheski. I'm just thrilled to see so many of you on here tonight. And what a long summer. A lot of answers that you've been waiting on, and we're here to provide them to you tonight. But I need to thank a couple people that are here to help us with the evening. And of course, some of your questions may need to be directed to them as well. So if you don't mind, we have Rob Renow, and I just want, if you can, just Rob, say hi, because I think it's nice to put a face with a name. But Rob Renow, if you could just tell us what you do with the district.
Sure. Hi, my name is Robert Renow. I'm the instructional technology and data specialist for the district, and obviously I have been pretty involved since we left in the spring with the remote learning piece here and the technology side and integrating the technology into the lessons.
Thank you. Todd?
Sure, I'll introduce myself as well. I am Todd Porcello, the high school principal.
Bob?
Robert Nisley, middle school principal.
I'm Ariana Needing. I'm the elementary principal.
Our Director of Special Education's on the line. Lisa, would you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Lisa Shields, Director of Special Education.
And if I've missed another principal or superintendent or someone on the call, I can't see you all in the mode I'm in. Chime in at this time. All right, we'll go ahead, and again, I appreciate you being here. No better way than to ask questions directly and get the information first handed. So without that, let's get started. Remote Learning 2.0 has the same goal as our on-campus, is that we're here to maintain the highest level of safety, of course, and health of our students and staff. But our conversation tonight is particularly to our remote learners, and that's a choice by each family. And I think that's something that you know best, and we're here to help support you with that decision. We learned a lot last spring, and spring 2020, I was very pleased, and I can't thank you enough for the amount of feedback you provided us every 2 to 3 weeks throughout the month of April and May. And you gave us some feedback that we can really use as we move into 2.0, and how 2.0 will be different than 1.0 is truly based on the improvements that we knew we needed to make based on your feedback. And so things that we did exceptionally great, and I said this the other night, and I'll say it again and again, I think it was better than any district in the county. You mentioned to us on the right, and especially our connections with students. But there were some things that were mentioned that we need to improve on, and that's what 2.0 will do. So let's focus on the left. And first of all, assignments and task lists and understanding where resources are kept for parents. We're going to do a better job this year with standardizing our Google Classroom. And because we had to pivot so quickly into our March remote learning, we barely even had a chance to talk with you and get some agreements at home and in between school. So we'll be doing virtual meetings the week of August 24th, 25th, 26th, and 27th. And that's for on-campus students and remote learners, just to get an understanding of the use of our digital resources across the district. Secondly, you let us know that the wellness menu and the connections kids can make throughout the day or in the evenings. Many families benefited from it. However, our communication could even be better. And our care teams, and what I mean by care teams is our principals, our assistant principals, our director of special education, our guidance counselors, our social workers worked as a unit all throughout spring, understanding kids who did not feel connected because of the distance. And I want to make sure those continue. That's a celebration of what happened in the spring. We want to make sure kids are connected, even if it means some evening tutoring at night. Thirdly, teachers, we had a lot of feedback saying, please call me if my student's missing assignments. I seem to not know. And so I want you to know that middle school and high school parents especially, we look forward to providing you missing assignment reports out of Infinite Campus. And again, I can't say it enough, but we want everyone on campus and remote learning families to be with us at Meet the Teacher Night the week of August 24th. And fourthly, your feedback taught us that better understanding of use of instructional time. And I believe it was said at a board meeting in July that the teacher may not have been on from beginning of the lesson to the end. And I want to talk about that tonight and share with you, very similarly to what happens on campus, what the life of a classroom and what you can expect from us in the remote learning classrooms as well. Some important dates to keep in mind. My goodness, we've already traveled all the way up to the 6th of tonight, but the 10th and the information provided here tonight, we hope that every single family, we need you to confirm your decision regarding remote learning by Monday the 10th, and that's so that we can stabilize our staffing. August 24th, you've probably heard me say it way too many times, but mark that on your calendar. We'll be getting back to you from our schools regarding calendar and the scheduling of those evening remote virtual Meet the Teacher nights. All right, if you've seen our plan, you've seen this screen, and you know that we are phasing in for the first 2 weeks of school to get our feet on the ground with safety here on campus, but also we'll be phasing in with our remote learners as well. So that first day of school for all remote learners and on campus is Monday, August 24th, and that's for last names A through L. We understand that some families have students with last names different in the home, and you may have some special needs. Some families have said, nope, we have that and we're okay that our kids would attend on opposite days. Some have said we want them to be uniform in that way of attending school. So if you have a special need, we have on our FAQ, and I'll say it again tonight, please contact our central office secretary, and that is Robin Naughton, and her email naughtonr@perry-lake.org is on our FAQ. Again, that's for if you have some special accommodation needs regarding last names and which children go on which dates. After that 2-week phase-in, our plan is September 8th, we would begin 100% on campus. That means 100% all students remote as well. So I think we're a district that's really positioned well for effective instruction. I feel like we're a district that stands above many in this respect. 4 things that you can count on with us is that our teachers are well trained with essential learning. So if we feel that we have some things that the hybrid, the 50% coming those first 2 weeks of school, or something would happen in our safety, our risk assessment from the Lake County General Health District, that we would have to change the manner in which we attend school. Our teachers understand which content objectives are essential and cannot be left off in a school year, which is ones that kids will see in a following school year as they move up the grade levels. Secondly, we're well positioned because we've worked hard, especially at the end of last 1.0, last remote learning season, on engaging participation and understanding that we cannot teach from bell to bell and keep our students engaged, that we really have ways that we've trained on to engage participation, to understand that we don't just sit behind the camera and not say anything back to the teacher, that we as adults have ways to make sure that we're listening. For example, right now, if I needed to know something from you and to make sure that you were just listening, I may hop into my chat and ask you a question and make sure you answered yes or no. I may ask you to give me a word or an understanding from the lesson, and that's us going back and forth. I'll talk more about the life of a classroom in just a moment. Thirdly, why this district is well positioned for effective instruction is we have worked years, and when I say years, I mean almost 7 to 8 years on formative assessment practices and reteaching methods for students. And fourthly, we aim to communicate often, and our most important, I think our best way of communication often is phone calls. So my advice to teachers, whether you're an on-campus teacher or you're working remotely or a remote learner-only teacher, is that this is the year of all years to digitize our teaching resources. That what we are offering on campus and through our Google Classroom is very similar to what our students will be receiving out on as remote learners as well. We don't know what the year holds. This has been truly an unprecedented time, as you know, and that if we have to pivot to a different way of learning, meaning not 100% on campus, we want to be able to pivot smoothly. And so digitizing our teaching resources for both on-campus and remote learners will position us well. So where do you find everything for instruction as a parent? I, as a parent, come across this all the time as well. And I want you to know that we want to do a better job. We have time now before a school year begins to work with you in a meet the teacher manner to help you understand that our two main modes for instruction of what you'll need to know is Google Classroom and, of course, Infinite Campus that's been in our district for well over a decade. Rob, I'm going to pick this over to you for a moment as you can kind of help support us a little bit with how do I know what my student's missing? Where are their assignments?
Okay, so I'm going to, give me a second here. Let me put this into present mode. All right. All right, so as Betty Jo said, you know, we learned a lot in the spring, and we've done a lot of work with over the summer with some teacher subgroups and that, trying to find out, you know, how can we make the experience for both the student, the parent, and the teacher better here in the fall. And so one of the things was, you know, we heard from you guys that it often was difficult for you as parents to support your remote learners at home, especially when you had kids at different grade levels and different buildings, and there was little intricacies between grade levels and teachers on how things looked, and so that made things difficult. So we're trying to, as Betty Jo mentioned earlier tonight, we're trying to standardize those kind of things. And so when the teachers come back in 2 weeks for their professional development week, we're going to be working with them and trying to make those improvements so that it's a smoother environment for everyone. So one of the things is parent access to Google Classroom. So I wanted to quickly go over two of the main ways on how you as a parent can help support your kids. One is daily or weekly guardian summaries. This presentation will be made available to you. This is a live link. I'm going to go ahead and click on this link and show you, hopefully. Yeah, so this will take you to Google Help page on Guardian Summaries. And so if you're not familiar with Guardian Summaries, if you scroll down the page just a little bit, it has a sample here of a Guardian Summary. This is what you would receive via email, either daily or weekly, if you choose to sign up for them. When you get them daily, they come about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And you can see that it'll show you missing work and work that's coming due. And then it shows you by class the things that were posted up on Google Classroom. And then on the bottom, it always gives you the ability to change your settings. So if you have it set to weekly summaries, and you said, well, I'd prefer to switch that to daily, you'd be able to do that. If you said, I'm done with these, I don't want to get them anymore, it also gives you the ability to unsubscribe. On that same page, there is an FAQ on guardian summaries. And so there's some frequently asked questions here about what those summaries are. So good resource for you if you're interested in receiving the daily or weekly summaries. Basically, all you need to do is enroll once, so you contact your teacher. And I'm sure the teachers will be reaching out a lot this year. It's going to be part of our professional development when they come back to say, hey, if you're not getting these, would you be interested? All they do is only one teacher needs to enter your email address. You'll get an email alert. You set up your settings. And then for that particular child, you're set for all their classes. You don't have to contact every single one of the teachers. Once the kid's in there for one class, they're in there for all of them. Now, if you have multiple children, you need to alert one teacher for each child, because Google doesn't know that the kids are related. So you need to do that for each one of your children. So that's option one. Option two would be to log in using your child's account. So in order to do that, all children have a school-issued email address, which is their graduation year followed by their last name, and then their first and middle initial. So you can see the example here. The student who's going to graduate in 2023, last name Smith, and their first and middle initial is JT. So smith.jt at perrystu.com. And then all the students' birthdays are their passwords as an 8-digit number. So this particular child has an April 9th birthday in 2005. So because it's a single-digit month and a single-digit day, we throw a 0 in front of those, which makes it an 8-digit password. So all students have an 8-digit password. So I'm going to show you a screen here on how you can log in and how you can switch between their accounts. I did link a video right here, which you can view later, which will also show this process in a little bit more depth. So on this screen here, hide this here. On the screen, I'm currently in my personal Gmail account, and so if I went to classroom.google.com, you'll notice there are no class listed here, because as a parent and a personal Gmail account, I don't have access to Google Classroom, nor can I enroll into any of my kids' Google Classrooms. It won't allow you. It's only for students, but you can get in there through their student account. So in the upper right-hand corner, you do have the account switcher, which allows you to add an account. So if you wanted to, you could click that. It would load up a Google page where you can enter your child's email address and password, and it'll add them to the list. Once the kids are in the list, they'll stay there. And so here's my first child. It's just a test student. If I click on this, it's going to load that child's Google Classroom. So these are the classes that this sample child is enrolled in. If I went back to my app switcher, my page is still loading, here we go. If I go to my account switcher here, here's my second student. So I could click on my second student, and you notice it opened a brand new tab here, and these are different classes. So notice on this tab, I've got my first student, and on here is my second student. So as a parent, pretty easy to toggle back and forth between my different children in Google Classroom. You know, you can go into the class, see what's going on in the class. Also, you have a to-do list. It'll show you everything that's missing or future assignments there, and they're color-coded by class. Again, we'll be releasing more details on that, on how to navigate Google Classroom, but wanted to show you tonight that super easy to go back and forth between different children in Google Classroom. Okay? Let me come back to the slides here. So again, we're going to be using Google Classroom as sort of the launch page for instruction. So the teachers will be posting their lessons on there for remote learning. And then even if they were using some third-party website, whether it's Edpuzzle or Paradeck or Mayan, there's lots of online resources that we use. Those will be launched from Google Classroom. So there is a parent guide here and also a navigation demo here as well. One of the things we're going to try to really emphasize this year with our teachers is using the Google Calendar for planning purposes. So this is an example of a schedule. I know Dr. Melchewski will be talking about this here as well. We're going to try, especially for our remote learners, to have their schedules mapped out. So during the day, if they're supposed to be somewhere at a certain time, we're going to encourage our teachers to put that on a Google Calendar so it's easy for everyone to navigate. And then you can sort of see here that there's two things here that are slightly different from the rest of the schedules. In Google Classroom, what Google Classroom will do here is when a teacher creates an assignment on Google Classroom, it creates an event on the calendar as well. So right here, here's something that's actually due on that day. So you can see the schedule of events for the day, but then there's some additional things that are happening during that same time period. So during this time, during my language arts time, oh, I had an essay that was due on the 27th here. So this is one of the things we want to try to improve. Have a one place location where you can go as a student or a parent to see where am I supposed to be right now? Do I need to be on a live session, or do I have assignments due coming up tomorrow? You can do that from that Google Calendar. And let me load this back up. One last thing before I turn it back over to Betty Jo. In trying to make things easier for everyone, Google announced over the summer that they've made a ton of improvements to their video conferencing tool. It's called Google Meet. And based on that, there's a high probability that for instructional purposes within the Perry schools, we're going to be transitioning students and teachers from Zoom over to Google Meet. The reason why is because Google Meet integrates into Google Classroom really well. And one of the struggles that we found during remote learning was teachers were creating their Zoom session links, and then those had to get posted so that the students had access to them. And then it was like, I don't know where the teacher posted that. Did they post it here? Did they post it there? As a parent, you're trying to help support your kid and you're not used to looking at that. And you're like, I don't know where I'm supposed to go. Well, the nice thing with Google Classroom is in the header of each class, Google Class, when you open up Google Classroom and you open a class, right below the class name is actually the link for that live session. So there won't be any, where is the link so I can get into the live session? It's going to be located right there. You can see there's lots of things that we're going to try to do to make this fall a little bit easier and less confusing for everyone. And hopefully that will improve the experience over the spring from that perspective. So I'm going to unshare my screen, and Dr. Melchewski, if you reshare your screen and if you can pick back up.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. We appreciate that. Getting a little feedback. Are we all on mute? All right, I'll give it a try. So for instruction, how do students and parents communicate with teachers? Well, as always, email is available. We really work hard as a district to get back with you within 24 hours, if not sooner. An app that we invested our time and energy into learning in the spring was Talking Points. And what I like about this app is many parents like, if they've given us permission in Infinite Campus, to communicate with them through text, not just by phone or email. This gives us a real opportunity to give out class messages. Also, what I love most about it is for our families who need a second language or a second language speakers, our messages go translated to them seamlessly, and they can also communicate back in their language, and we have a real smooth transition with communication. And thirdly, phone calls, the best of all phone calls. That's how to communicate with teachers. And again, I don't know if I said it enough at the last board meeting that we had, that we want to make sure that those virtual meetings are well attended, because there's just such a great opportunity for us to set up a shared partnership with you and with your children and our teachers in a much better way than we were able to do in April when we quickly moved towards the pandemic. One thing we know we want to do is really understand our roles and our expectations, our agreements that we have with each other. And student attendance for remote learners is based on access and engagement. So families that are on the line tonight that have a real need for mainly younger kids, but childcare issues that you are not able to help and support your children until the evening time, that's okay. Because what we aim to do as remote learning instructors is that our main teaching points for the day would be recorded and available to you. When children need support sessions, we want to schedule those. So if those are things that cannot be done until the evening, and I know there's a few families that that's the need, we as a district are committing to evening tutoring sessions with instructors. And we're unique in the way of our resources at Perry, in that we have 21st century after school programming that allows for us to fund for such positions. So if you saw some of our larger postings out this week, is because we aim to support our learners, and those job postings are out. We're expanding some job opportunities here on campus as well. Parents or caregivers during the day, we need your commitment. We know that remote learning decision, you've thought about it all summer, and you're going to be offered the time for questions to get answered that are not answered here tonight. At the end of this session, we'll certainly provide time for that. But we need your help in making sure that you commit to us for coming to those virtual Meet the Teacher evenings, that you help your child to know that they need to check Gmail mornings and afternoon. That's part of being a remote learner. That they attend and show up unless it's a caregiver issue, and that they participate. And that's what access and engagement means to qualify for attendance that day. And lastly, as parent and caregivers, we ask to support the attendance needs, and I think I just mentioned that. What you can expect from curriculum, assignments, and grading is the same grading practices on campus are the exact same for remote learners. And our commitment to instruction, that daily direct teaching will be short. We know that we can never keep the attention of our learners from an entire bell to an entire bell. So what you'll see on the remote learning end is exactly what you would see in our classrooms as well, is that the teachers oftentimes, not every day, has a direct teaching lesson, and then the rest of the class period is given back to the students. The students get back time to either apply it individually, or they're applying it in a small group with other peers, or they're applying it in a conferring way with the teacher where he or she's gaining feedback and taking notes of what next instruction is needed for those students. So if you do not see a bell-to-bell teacher talking at students, that's a good thing. And I can explain more when I get a schedule in front of you in just a moment. Direct teaching, I think I mentioned, is recorded in case you need to access anytime. And even if your student is in class that day, that you don't have caregiver issues, they're actually in class and just need to hear it again, that's me sometimes, they have access to it as well. We are committing that, I think I've mentioned that fourth bullet item, we're committing to, of course, what we do well with formative assessment and really getting to understand what our learners need. Hands-on learning and labs are still possible in some cases, even in this strange time we find us in. So if there's a lab or equipment that we don't readily find as materials in our home, and there is a lab that's approved by the teacher that we think we can actually do remotely as well, we may have some pickup times for some school resources. And at the end of tonight, we'll also talk about one that you got in an email today about returning Chromebooks and returning some items, and you'll see things like that throughout the year, that just because it's happening on campus, you have those opportunities as well to do this. And our commitment is that learning will be accessible to English learners, at-risk students, and what our general ed teachers, our general education teachers are trained to do is that when we have English learners that are performing rather well but still have some language barriers, we understand how to make the learning slides accessible to them before the learning. We understand that it's our commitment to you to make key vocabulary make some extra teaching available to that, because there are new words that English speaking students probably hear all the time, or students who aren't at risk may already know. And that we commit, of course, I've mentioned, to translation for parents who have indicated that in Infinite Campus. So let's get talking about what will remote learning look like. Keep in mind you're seeing a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule because this is our phase-in schedule. This is the M through Z's of the second week of school. And this is, of course, just a sample, but the yellow indicated times show you academic times for your child as a remote learner throughout the day. This happens to be an elementary schedule. So they may see a morning meeting where they're kind of scooping up and starting the day, may head into a subject area, and then some independent time, may hop into math, and then there's lunch and play at home, and then they hop into writing, and maybe science and social studies, and there may be an exploratory. Now your child's schedule may look very different than this, but for the sake of conversation and the sake of maybe some of our questions tonight, you will see through use of the Google Calendar your schedule, and your commitment at home is just attend to that schedule and make sure we know, oops, this is our schedule we need to be on. And our schedule ends at this time, and we have some free open opportunities for lunch and play throughout the day. Again, that's an elementary example. A secondary example looks very similar to the school day schedule, and following your 5th block, your 6th block, your 7th block, and so forth. I should say first block, second block, third block, and fourth block. And so just as our on-campus learners have a similar looking schedule, if you are a remote only teacher, you'll be assigned to that teacher or teachers for the entire year, and your schedule will be set up working with you just as this one similarly is. And so you may have a teacher for language arts and social studies, and you may have a different teacher at the middle school, I'm speaking, for science and math. You can report to exploratories, which we also call specials. And then there's an end of the day flex time, and we may not quite all be there about how we're handling that, but we can certainly entertain questions on that. But what I mentioned to you, and I hope you focus on the right side, what's mentioned there is that there's times for the teaching point where students need to be in and listening. There's new teaching happening that day. But there's also time given back to the students, and I think this next slide shows that best. If you kind of follow across the red or the pink with the remote learners, is that we need to show up and be ready for new direct instruction. It's so important that we're learning something, teachers teaching us something new that day. Whether we're engaging and applying, whether we're doing it on our own, or we're doing it with a group, or we're doing it conferring with the teacher, that is going to be up to the teacher's planning each day. Typical classrooms usually have direct instruction in them. They give time back to the teacher, back to the students to apply, to get feedback, and then we typically close up and wrap up learning for the day of how we've grown since we started this class today. We can talk more about this, but I think this visual can kind of help to kind of see the layout or the architecture of what a classroom looks like, so that you understand if your student is doing some independent work because teaching's already occurred, it may be a day that they're not needed in a small group. As I mentioned at the board meeting on Tuesday night, the teacher's plan may be, because of feedback collected the day before, that I need to meet with student 1, 2, and 3 and student 9, 16, I don't know, I made that up, but those students, right? And your child may not be one that needs a breakout group, but they could be meeting in maybe a peer group that's been set up. And as you can hear as I'm saying this, that has a lot to do with the maturity and the age of the students as well. All right. A big popular question is, if my child's in a club or athletics and they're remote learners, can they participate? And the answer is yes. If that club or athletics is offered in the district, yes, by all means, remote learners can participate. Keep in mind, transportation would need to be provided by the parent or guardian to and from that activity. Some activities, though, such as clubs, may be held remotely for all kids. So that will be, the advisors of that clubs will be in touch, and if certainly those announcements that go out when clubs begin will go out district-wide to you and to students on campus. something that worked really well for many families, I think we can do a better job of communicating it this year, is our wellness and our mental health, our wellness menu. And so whether students need more physical activity or they need to connect with some social emotional learning, they just need to find some interest and chase some of their passions and align with someone to follow a project through. Or we need to find help and I just really need to talk to someone. We want to make sure those resources are in your hands at just the click of those links right there. We'll be working as we return to school to refresh some of those with some of our amazing guidance counselors and social workers and PE and health and exploratory teachers who have great minds in designing things for the wellness menu. And we'll make sure that's something that is highly communicated so you can access it at any time. And I'd be remiss in saying that I think this has been a time of our lives like no other. Never did I dream we would be here at this time last year. What we've been through in our homes and through this pandemic is nearly indescribable on some days. So I think it's just worth mentioning that the coping skills of our adults, we as parents, we as taking care of each other as a community is of utmost importance. And so I want to make sure that coping tips for we adults are here as well. And I want to make sure that if there's something there that you need and you need some further resources, we're here as a school community to help you as well. Our community FAQ has been out for a good 2 to 3 weeks. It grows by the week. When you ask us questions, we post them and make sure that we get it out to all our community. So I want to make sure that the school plan that you received today in email, there is a slide called remote learning, and everything we're talking about tonight is linked right from there. Our FAQ is linked and we don't have to go through it unless there's particular things that you want to ask that you don't see answered on there, and we'll be doing that next. And I just want to remind you that on the call tonight, we're here to help you. All of these folks are on the call, and some of your questions that may not be a district question, but more school specific, you're welcome to ask at this time. And Alan, our Director of Communications, is there any kind of method of the madness you'd like to do as we organize for these questions and take turns?
Sure. So let's start with some questions that I've already gotten in my email inbox. And in the meantime, anyone who's on can chat a question and we'll get to those as well. One of the biggest questions that has come up again is, what will band, choir, STEM, and art look like virtually? What do those type of classes look like?
So as you may or may not know, we have used the square footage of each of our classrooms to identify how many students can safely, with a teacher, reside in the classroom and learn in a safe basis. That's for on-campus students. Remote students, every exploratory, except we may still have some discussions to do with regard to our high school construction, our house flip project. Every exploratory, as I know it today, and if I'm wrong, I know our principals will correct me on it, are offered to our remote learners as well. Elementary families tended to appreciate last year that their students did not necessarily have to show up at a certain time for exploratories, that those menu of options were available to flex in and flex out as they chose. If that has changed, certainly give us that feedback. But as far as the elementary, we believe we will carry on as we did successfully last year. 5th through 12th grade will be scheduled into their exploratories. If I haven't answered that question directly, feel free to ask that again.
Yeah, I think it was more pertaining to what it looks like for a remote learner and choir, you know.
Yes, and I sure wish I had. I believe I do have a music teacher online right now, but I want to make sure I get that information. But as far as I understand, there's certainly opportunity. We don't want to lose our music students. We do not want to use our Buccaneers or our band students or any of that. So Meet the Teacher night is going to be pretty valuable for the fine arts to kind of share that. They know it best, but I do want to confirm that we do not plan at all to remove that from the offerings of our remote learners.
Couple here related specifically to the middle school. Will middle school students still receive high school credit for Spanish? And will they be able to participate in accelerated math?
Yes, there was a bit of a rumor, perhaps, that we were not offering honors classes or AP classes this year. I don't know how that got started, but that's false. And honors classes and gifted services, that answer is yes.
Great. Will virtual students in the middle school be able to take all the classes they registered for last spring? And I would assume that would go for any school, really.
Mr. Nisley, would you like to answer that? I wanted.
It should be a yes. I can't think of any classes that wouldn't run. And unless there weren't enough kids to run the class or run a section.
Do we know anything about how state testing would be done, if that would have to happen on site? Do we have any clarification on that yet, how that would work?
We do not have any clarification directly that's been sent down from Ohio Department of Education, but in informal meetings that I have had and been a part of throughout the summer, distance learning options will be provided if state testing. State testing is still on as we know it today. In order for state testing to change, there needs to be a waiver written by the state of Ohio to get federal approval. And I do know that a waiver is in the written stages, but I do not know if it's been submitted. And so as I can share tonight, state testing is still on with remote provisions. More to come on that.
If there's no lockers, if they're not able to use their lockers, where are, there's a concern about where students would keep their coats and instruments for band and so forth.
Sure, high school students have never used lockers, but I'll let Mr. Nisley describe that for middle school.
So band instruments will be kept in the band room. There is a very large storage area in there where students have always kept their instruments, and so even if they're taking their stuff home and bringing it back, they'll have time to drop their instruments off in the band room in the morning before homeroom. In terms of coats, I would say, and I have, this has been a battle that I have fought and lost. Most of our middle school students don't wear coats to school, even when it's 20 degrees below zero. They wear hooded sweatshirts. We are starting the year with no lockers. And in the event that when and if we do get some guidance on lockers, students will be assigned lockers and will have combinations. We just won't be starting with the use of lockers. So, we may have the ability at some point to pivot and allow students to start using lockers again, but that is a question that we haven't received enough guidance on in order to start the school year with that. And so we're pretty confident and comfortable that in allowing students to carry, book bags and backpacks at school, which we normally don't do, that students will be able to have everything that they need, at least here in the fall.
Lisa Shields, this one's for you, and I think it's probably something important to discuss. Special education services and how 2.0 might look compared to 1.0. What are kind of the differences going to be there?
Well, I think obviously just improving on what we felt, again, was pretty successful overall. We were able to meet the students' needs and had a lot of good things happen in there, a lot of things that we know that we can do differently and a lot better. The services are going to be provided remotely with the intervention specialists that are assigned in the middle school, it's grade level. At the elementary, it's across grade, and at the high school, it's content specific. So they could have a couple of intervention specialists. Related services will be on remotely as well. We did get some additional technology that will help us be a little bit more engaging, especially in the younger grades. Our IEPs will be remote. And then I think the biggest thing that we would like to try to do is provide some one-on-one, face-to-face interventions in some resource support labs at sort of the base of each of the schools, where if a student is just not successful remotely, that we can provide some deeper interventions. I hope, does that answer the question? I hope.
Yeah, I mean, the question is just kind of looking for the differences between
Yeah.
the two. So yeah.
Yeah.
If there's more specific questions, please by all means
Yeah.
chat and ask it.
Yeah. Yep, or just give me a call. I'll give my cell phone number. It's really easy to get me, 440-364-3230. So if you have any specific questions, you can call anytime.
Thank you so much. That's awesome. Someone wants to know if their student has signed up for on-campus, can they switch them to remote on their own, no matter what the state or school district decides as to the risk level that we're at?
That's a good question. The answer to that is no at this time. As much as we're hoping to be as flexible as possible, the ability to go remote without a medical reason, of course our medical reasons in this era, we will make all provisions for. But our staffing, in order to keep it stable, we're asking for that decision to be in on the 10th, and that will be the commitment for the year.
Someone wants to know what the ratio will be for remote learners, student teacher is I'm guessing what that means.
You know what, I'm gonna defer to principals on that. I think you know it best. Ariana, would you like to start with the elementary?
Sure, I was actually just about to type that in the chat. Our numbers continue to change about this time based off of our grade levels. Our numbers are consistent to a typical grade level classroom.
Our numbers have fluctuated quite a bit. Some of our grade levels, we have seen a significant decrease in the remote learning, and others we've seen some increase. We started the summer, I would say towards the end of June, looking at about 20 per grade level, and that kind of fluctuates down now to about 15, and as high as 24, 25. So we are looking for the general core classes. We're looking at a ratio that would be in line with what a typical traditional class section would be. There are going to be some of our classes, however, that because the student is taking something and there might only be 1 or 2 remote learners in that, we do not have the staffing to run that as an isolated section. And so in those cases, those students would be streaming in to an on-campus classroom so that we can continue to provide those courses for those kids as well.
Todd?
For the majority of the remote learning courses at Perry High School, as far as the core subject areas are considered, so English, science, math, and social studies, we have standalone section for remote learners where a teacher will be in his or her classroom during that day. So whether it's first block all the way through 6th block, that teacher will be working with approximately 20 students, give or take, probably plus or minus 5. During that scheduled block of time, the teacher will work closely with the student as they progress through different software online as a main form of learning in the foundation, as well as providing those interventions and enrichment opportunities that arise. As far as courses like Perry Service Learning, which is a senior only class, or AP courses, those would be more simultaneous learning with the actual course, and the majority of electives will be simultaneous learning as well. From a high school perspective, because of the personalization that occurs with a lot of scheduling, schedules will be going live at some point next week. I would highly encourage you, as most people do before the school year starts, to reach out to a guidance counselor and let's work to get those personalized needs met as we prepare students for their future.
While along the same lines, Mr. Porcello, someone wants to know about CCP courses and if those are still going to be offered.
Yeah, and I did answer that in the chat, but I can speak to that as well, is that CCP will still be going on our campus, as well as any college or university that a student is able to get accepted into. A high percentage of courses through CCP have gone online, but as far as the courses on our campus, as of today, we are planning on running those.
Someone wants to know where they sign up for their kid to be a remote learner. How do they go about doing that?
I can answer that. Now that the survey has kind of passed, and I realize that was an early in the summer survey, and we've had a lot of time to think since then. It's in the FAQ if you don't catch what I'm about to rattle off, but that is our central office administrative assistant named Robin Naughton, and that email is naughtnr@perry-lake.org. They're standing ready and each day are updating our remote learners.
Someone wants to know if the remote teachers are going to be the same Perry teachers that we currently have on staff, or are they going to be new to the district?
Yeah, for the most part, they're Perry teachers. I'll let each principal, starting with Ariana, mention that.
Yeah, again, based on numbers, we're continuing to look at staffing, but most likely they'll be our current Perry teachers.
Mr. Nisley?
That is our goal. However, we are hiring a number of new staff, and so while it is my goal to set our remote learning sections up with somebody that has already been with us, that's not necessarily a given.
Mr. Porcello?
And at the high school level, currently, the way the schedule is run is that those classes are all taught by teachers that have been with us at least for several years. That is, of course, subject to change as teachers, different personal situations arise with leaves and other possible situations that could arise that may force us to hire somebody new, and it depends who goes on that leave. So for the most part, as of today, it's current Perry teachers.
Great. All right, we are running out of time, so we're gonna get to as many questions as we can. I know there's a lot of them, and again, if we don't get to your question, please feel free to reach out to any of those email addresses, call us, email us, whatever you need to do, and we'll get your question answered one way or another. But moving on, someone is concerned about how much homework will be given, and will they be on their computers all day and then have more hours in the evening? Or are they just going to be constantly on their computers? Question, I think.
I'd like to speak to that. I think we can certainly work with that. I believe there's more flexibility in a home remote schedule than there is on campus. You could see in some of those examples I mentioned that just open, I think I showed an elementary schedule, but there's time for open time. I think you could see those blocks for flexibility. As far as homework, as always, I would encourage you, let's monitor that and see in partnership together on that. Homework is an interesting thing. In Remote Learning 1.0, we had some families who had the same assignment as other children. So that was so easy, they did it within 10 minutes. We had some families saying our kids are on all night with that same assignment. So that does vary on the learner, and let's just be conscientious of this. But if we're working in true partnership, and I want you to know that we're always a phone call away, then you're helping it to guide what's happening on that end and help us to understand what's too much or too little for each student. And enrichment is something we are gladly to offer for students who need more. At the same time, if you're telling us a little bit that students are on an assignment for over 20, 30 minutes and even less time for a younger child, we need to hear from you on that. So let's stay in close partnership on those communications.
There's a lot of questions right now coming in about where to pick up pre-ordered school supplies or books, or drop off Chromebooks for repairs, and is there a date for that, or what's the best way to do that?
That came in an email today, but Ms. Needing, would you kind of go through that for us?
Yes, so the dates that are scheduled are Monday, August 17th from 3 to 6 p.m. and what date is the 17th or the 19th? Wednesday,
17th.
August 19th. Yeah, Wednesday, August 19th from 8 to 3 p.m. And so what we're saying is those students that are remote learners that already have devices, you will just keep those home. You don't need to come and bring those back to the drop-off. However, we know that there are some kindergarten, first grade families or families that are new to the district that may need a device. And so if you do need those, please contact your building principal and we will sign you up. And then on those days, you can pick up that Chromebook. Families will also be able to pick up their supply kits. For example, I know we do the supply kits at our school that you would be able to take home as well. Or if you have books that teachers had given you during that remote learning time last spring, you can drop those off as well during those days.
Thank you.
Right.
Can I also say too that they can also bring, if there's anything that they need to give or notify the nurses, they will be there during that time as well.
Great. That's a very important.
All right, just to close things up, and again, if we didn't get your question, please get in touch with us. Does anyone have anything they want to add clarity to before we wrap things up?
Are there any questions we weren't unable to get to?
I'm looking through them here.
Again, if you chat and let us know, we will, that's one of the best ways to answer.
Somebody posted a question, and a special ed question, middle school students and exploratories. I would recommend that you reach out to the case manager, the special ed teacher that works with your child. They can give you kind of a clear picture as to what that schedule is going to look like. I can't really see why we would prohibit kids from going into exploratories unless there was some external reason that can't happen. But I would reach out to Mrs. Martin, or you can give me a call as well. We can talk through that.
There was a question of how we can verify that our election remote or on campus has been captured correctly in the portal, and that's in the FAQ. It's that Mrs. Naughton, and that's naughtonr@perry-lake.org. And we can certainly also picking up the phone and calling the school is fine as well, but we'll help you with that.
Are we certain that doesn't show up on the parent portal? Is that not something that they would see from their end when they log into Infinite Camp? I guess maybe this is a Rob question because I don't know the answer.
I'm going to log in right now into my parent account, and I'll get back to that answer in about 20 seconds.
Yeah, and I'm happy to stay on if that means getting that answer back.
There were also some questions about COVID related and testing or being ill. There's a lot of information in the Restart plan. I think it's detailed, and there's a lot of links in that Restart plan. So if you'd like more information, that's a great place to start for Perry.
Yes,
But
those answers are there.
The links for those are right on the website, correct? The Restart plan is on the website, and it's been emailed to families.
Yeah,
right?
so if you go to the coronavirus response plan portion of the website, which is it's on every building's web page, it's on the district web page, it's the first news item on all those pages. If you go there, you'll see the FAQ, and the FAQ, both the FAQ and the plan are living documents. So they can be changed at any time as situations change, and as our plan changes to adapt to those situations, and as more questions come in, and we add them to the FAQ. So you can check them every day, and you could have the most up-to-date information possible.
Okay.
I had a quick question, if it's okay to ask.
Yeah, go ahead.
On the school board meeting the other night, you guys talked about remote students coming into the building in the evening to take tests. What if we feel uncomfortable with that?
We have not set up for that yet. So at the board meeting the other night, it was mentioned as an option we're considering. I think we'll work with you on that. I think you'll find that our provisions are your child may not even be in a room with someone else except a monitor. So I want to just if that's one of yours, it's a valid concern, work with us. Let us share with you the provisions we'll have in place for that once that becomes started, and I think you'll feel very, very safe. But we'll leave that to you. But I think you'll be very pleased with they're not coming into a room full of other.
Would that be for second graders? Just curious. Are they too young?
No. Yeah,
Okay.
no, this would
Never
be,
mind.
no, yes, but I'm glad you asked that question. This is typically a need for high school students, especially those that are needing assessments that look very much like what they're preparing for an AP test or an ACT test, which I'm not so sure we will have this year, but more to come on that. That the very nature of the test, the students have to kind of train their eye for that type of test. And so in order to do that, we wanted to give them opportunities to test in that manner. I appreciate that you asking it. That's a great question. We're not thinking a testing site is needed for an elementary child.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we probably wouldn't have that for middle school either for testing.
Betty Jo, I've scanned through everywhere I could on the parent portal, and I do not see that listed anywhere. Although I can touch base with Robin Naughton tomorrow to see if that would be something we might be able to add somewhere on the tab, and then if that was possible, we could always communicate that out to the parents.
Absolutely. That would go on our FAQ. In the meantime, I've given that email to you several times tonight. Your best way to stay in close communication of what we see on our end and making sure it's the placement you're requesting is to email that individual in the district. Al, any further things to address?
No, I think we're okay as far as questions to remote learning are concerned. I'm sure there's going to be more as we progress and as people log off tonight and think, wow, I didn't ask this question. Now that I'm thinking about it, I really have this question. Again, please feel free. We want to be there for you and help you out.
Yeah,
So,
I'm excited for the opportunities that exist for remote learners in 2.0. And if there's anything we have not answered for you, that's why we're here. Feel free to use our emails. We check them all the time. And we'll phone call you or email you back and make sure you have what you need. But we look forward to our remote learners this coming school year. Thank you.
all right, thank you, everybody.